Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you could tell by the title, we will be talking about a pretty nasty storm system that could be delivering a lot of severe weather actually, potentially some very warm temperatures out ahead of it. Well, for the most part, that is kind of already done. But mainly what I'm concerned about is, as I mentioned, the severe weather. And that could obviously mean tornadoes, heavy rain, lightning, hail, wind, and also just how long this thing's going to last for. It's going to be a kind of a multi-day event, and it's going to be gradually moving west to east. So along with it, the threat will be going with it. So it's not just like a one-day thing. This isn't anything incredible though, but this isn't like a superstorm things we haven't seen before. Though there definitely is a bit of concern obviously with this, as there is with pretty much any big summertime storm system that has a decent area of circulation. And I do think that the severe weather side is going to be rather high. Again, I do think though it's not going to be like the biggest event we've seen this year though. It doesn't seem like that for now. Though it definitely has potential to outperform. So before I start completely going off into random tangents, let me just say that if you guys are new to this channel, hello, welcome. Obviously, I just talk about the weather. I'm a weather hobbyist enthusiast, not a meteorologist. Obviously, for official weather info, I always direct everyone to the National Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center in regards to severe weather, which I have pulled up right now. And yeah, if you have any comments or concerns, leave them down below. I'll do my best to answer them. I read all the comments, except I don't always answer them because I kind of feel sometimes a bit lazy. But of course, I guess if you keep writing them, I'll have something to work on improving myself and answering them. So let's start talking about this. So right now, notice what we do have. As I mentioned in a previous video, we do have a system across the Northeast that is delivering a bit of showers, gloomy weather, nothing incredible. There has been some rain with that, but really what the more more outstanding thing in today's pattern is the monsoons that continue to impact a lot of California, Utah, Colorado. Today is a pretty broad day in terms of its impacts. You can see that there are, I think that's a flash flood of some kind right there, and yeah, a flash flood warning across California. Special weather statement is basically just warning about like spontaneous storms that could spawn. You can see we have some severe thunderstorm warnings in Utah, right there across the border of Colorado and Utah into southern Colorado to New Mexico. New Mexico's here into Arizona. So on the radar, this is a pretty active day, and you can see that radar overlay on the map here. You can see a lot of these storms just kind of firing up. In terms of a more, a severe threat, we do have we have a pretty large severe thunderstorm watch for Kansas and a bit of extreme southern Nebraska, as well as Minnesota and portions of extreme northeastern South Dakota. There's a tornado warning with a storm here and a severe thunderstorm warning for Lincoln, and not Lincoln, Nebraska, but Lincoln, Kansas. And let's click on that tornado warning and let's see what it shows. Obviously, radar indicated rotation for a tornado. Well, not obviously, because sometimes this is weather spotted or weather spotters. That usually means that there's a tornado on the ground. I don't think there is one. Okay, so I guess this one has a history of producing several brief tornadoes. That doesn't necessarily mean it has one right now, but it could obviously produce more along the way if it doesn't weaken. And you can see ping pong ball size hail, which I guess will get to you as well if the tornado doesn't. So you better seek shelter if you're under a tornado warning at in those areas. But that's not really what I'm trying to focus on. I'm trying to look at this system up here. Notice we have a lot of moisture because we have a lot of the monsoons going on. That should be a key sign that there's a lot of moisture for this system to tap into. And what we're looking at is this disturbance that is stretched across Alberta and Manitoba, Canada, or Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And notice that what we do have as we go forward into tomorrow, again, this is pretty short range. This isn't really far out. Within 7 a.m. tomorrow, this thing is starting to kick up a bit of storms across Iowa, though these may develop again where that severe thunderstorm watch is right now, so they could be a bit earlier, but definitely to do with a lot of the moisture and with the energy from that system that's starting to harness there. Notice though it really starts popping up across a good portion of the front range of the Rockies and into much of northern North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, southern Canada. And notice that as you get into Friday, this thing does deliver a swath of storms. Now this is a global model, so this just shows it as a blob of green and yellow, but I'll show you a more high-res model that shows these systems, these storms in more detail, something you'd see more on the radar. Notice as the system moves towards the east, we do have a weak low pressure that forms, and this does, again, as I said, track towards the east. Saturday's another day we'll have to watch for. Nothing looks remarkable for the severe weather threat, but definitely just because of how many areas are impacted by, there are going to be a few storms that definitely could cause some damage and whatnot. But notice that the circulation stays pretty far to the north, so really as it moves towards the east and northeast into Sunday and Monday, it's really just a cold front that's going to be impacting our viewing area, which a cold front from this system isn't going to be too awfully impressive, but definitely still something to watch for. And as it approaches the northeast, you can still see it's in a pretty well, I guess, almost reorganized shape, so that's something to watch for. And look how long it stretches for, all the way into the south. And again, with the monsoon moisture over here, there's a lot of, I guess, potency with this. With any new system, it's pretty eager to kind of hatch on to that. And notice that this is now pretty far into the future, but what we do see is a pretty strong cold front, and behind it we have a very cool blast of air. You can see that 540 line getting into southern Canada, so again, indication of how chilly it is. And notice that, look at that, I mean, some days there's just probably going to be pop-up thunderstorms across a generous area of the southern United States with that moisture. With daytime heating rate, doesn't take much to kind of kick off a few storms. But yeah, that's, if you see, you can see it's kind of a more disorganized, I guess, situation later on. For now, we have this system, which I showed you 240 hours out of all of those. This is definitely the most organized system we'll probably be seeing in the next, again, a few days. And the GFS really agrees with that model. You can still see, or you can see that it does develop that storm right there. That's tomorrow. You can see some of those bright orange colors again, some nasty severe weather occurring there Saturday. Or late Friday, Saturday, and then again on Saturday, maybe a bit further south and east. And then, of course, that cold front as it drags through the Midwest right here. Well, southern Midwest, more of the Mid-Atlantic, the Appalachians, the South, and the Northeast right there. So that's something to watch for. Again, several days of this we'll have to keep an eye on for. Storm Prediction Center. So for today, it does have two areas pretty much where those thunderstorm watches are issued right now. And you can see that does include a generous area of South Dakota and Minnesota, as well as Nebraska and Kansas. Again, the biggest threat is going to be mainly the hail. You can see right there at 15%. But also the tornadoes. I mean, at 5%, that's not, that's not nothing. It's definitely there. And then wind is also a decent threat as well. Tomorrow, though, it's a slight. I do think, honestly, it will be upgraded to an enhanced. If not, it doesn't really make that much of a difference, because that's just how, I guess, the numbers they will be. So I think there still will be some nasty storms. They just might not be as numerous. Notice the tornado risk for tomorrow is thankfully low, but the wind and the hail is at 15. And I do think, honestly, especially with the wind, that one of them could be upgraded into that 30%, either the wind or the hail, which would lead to an enhanced. I don't think there will be moderates, but I really do think that there will be an enhanced issue for tomorrow. If there isn't, I'd be kind of surprised, but you can still see it's a massive area. That's like, I mean, right? It covers a very large area. So it's, many large cities and population centers that are going to be impacted by a pretty big threat. Saturday, you can see if they're marginal again. By the time comes around, I do think this will be at least a slight. But again, this storm doesn't have, I guess, really doesn't have that much, I guess, favorability to work with it. And that's why, for a storm that, I guess, powerful, it won't be producing a strong severe weather threat as it could, really. Doesn't have that much of a push of energy, I guess, as some previous storms that were of that size in the past weeks. Again, notice this is a high-res model, so this is kind of what I wanted to show you, because the earlier models were the global models, and those are the models that, as I mentioned, just kind of show blobs of precip, and you could assume that's going to be some severe weather based on intensity. But this is more of a precision model, and notice that tonight this is what the threat looks like. Could impact the Twin Cities right there, St. Cloud, with that, some heavy rain, some thunderstorms. But the main event really starts taking off right here, and you can see there's a little bit of snow right there, indicating that there's some chilly air behind that storm. And this is tomorrow, 11 a.m., 12 a.m., so you can see 12 p.m. Things start kind of winding down, anything that is still going on from the night. This model does like to enhance some of these storms, so that right there, there may be a storm there, but that's probably a bit too big. But notice that there's going to be a brief period of kind of cool down, but towards the afternoon hours, as typically things do, they pick up, and notice there's an explosion of storms across South Dakota, North Dakota, into portions of southern. I believe this is, I always get mine two provinces sometimes mixed up. That is, I believe, Manitoba, and this is Saskatchewan. I may be wrong about that, but I think so. Notice that there could be some storms across Wisconsin, so you can see several areas that kind of get blown up with these nasty storms, nasty cells. Again, I do think that the hail threat from these, especially early on, could be pretty high, which I think will be the main reason why they give it an enhanced. If they don't, then I think the second biggest threat is going to be this thing right here. This storm, I guess a second low pressure here, weak center of circulation forms, and we see this. We see these storms kind of line up into more of these linear fashions, which could bring more of a wind threat on late Friday, almost early Saturday. You can see it stays alive through the night, these storms. So it's one of those mesoscale convective clusters. And those are usually, they could outperform easily. And you can see that kind of drives away through the day on Friday. And then on Saturday, there's another day of potentially severe weather with a cold front behind this thing as it starts developing. Models like the NAM, you can see it does show that system on that first day, right? Again, I think there could be definitely some threats here that could be approaching that enhanced limit or enhanced risk at the storm prediction center sometimes issues. And then notice that on the Saturday we do have some storms that develop along the cold front of this, so that's another, I guess, area to watch for, and I guess be a little bit concerned for. Just just definitely keep an eye on for, to say the least. Total precip, I mean, it's really kind of useless to click on this because this just shows you where the model thinks there will be storms, but in reality, it can't. It's just no way it's going to be that accurate with predicting where the heaviest rain falls. So I guess what you could take away from this is that where the rain does fall, there's going to be probably several inches of it, but it's just like with summer thunderstorms. A few miles over, there could be a lot of rain, and in your area, there could be nothing. So just, again, keep your eyes on the radar and stay prepared for, potentially heavy rain or just absolutely nothing. That's just sometimes how it is, but it's better, I guess, to prepare for a threat that could immobilize rather than just being caught off guard. Because then if you are prepared, then I guess, you think it's a waste, but, it's way worse than being caught off guard with not being prepared at all. So, yes, I do think that this honesty will be issued to an enhanced tornado threat, pretty low, but again, it's definitely there. Her model, this is a very high res model, so it's pretty precise. Let's see what it shows. It goes out only to 48 hours, but let me just zoom in onto the north central United States and kind of play this through. So again, this is today, 5, 6, 7, 8. Notice the pop-up storms here that occur, right? The two areas that have the watches currently are across Minnesota and into portions of Nebraska and Kansas. That will continue into the overnight. And notice that 3, 4, 5, some of these storms may be pushing to Iowa. Again, sometimes these things are hard to predict. They are a bit, sometimes the models have a very hard time predicting what, will result in these clusters. They usually do show them on a map, so it's not just like completely out of nowhere. But whether or not this forms into more of a strong line, maybe pushes towards areas, where Iowa, Missouri, Illinois meet with a bit more intensity, or will it just fall apart like this model shows? It's a bit of a gamble, but definitely if you live in Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, there's a chance for storms. They could be non-existent again in reality, or they could actually form into a decent line. You'll just have to wait and see. That's just sometimes how it is with the weather. And again, as I said, these storms start winding down, at least the ones further east as you get into tomorrow afternoon. But we do start seeing the ones closer towards, again, the west, the Rockies, Dakotas, right there blowing up. And you can see some of these have nasty, centers. I definitely think there could be some large hail with this. I would be surprised if there wasn't a enhanced issued for this. Again, a tornado risk is also there. There could be several rounds for several areas, right? And you live right there across South Dakota, central South Dakota. You get hit by one around 5, 6, 7 o'clock. Another one comes in later, 10 o'clock, and maybe even a third round further on. So that's just something to watch for. Notice we see an explosion of storms across Iowa, northern Iowa, and Minnesota. Again, if this does form into more of a line, that could be a wind threat, and they could also raise the risk, maybe even to an enhanced again. And you can see that there's just a lot of activity. It's going to be a pretty well lit up radar. 5, 6, 7 a.m., right? And I keep talking about the enhanced versus light, but with any storm, there's going to be lightning and thunder and whatnot, so that's already a risk of its own. And notice these hold pretty well through the nights. 8 a.m., 9 a.m., they're across the Mississippi, and they're into Wisconsin, Illinois. You can see a little bit of showers. They're definitely decaying, but they're definitely still potent enough to produce some sort of a threat. And again, how quickly these decay, no one really knows. And do note that even if those start falling apart, we start seeing, I guess, that cold front develop, and those could be some nasty little storms to watch for. So that is that. I could show you the NAM 3 cam, another high-res model that I use sometimes pretty often. I like it quite a bit. Again, notice that, look at that. So there's that first explosion of storms tomorrow towards the late evening, but then in the overnight hours, especially across Iowa, we see that second explosion. That could be a lot of rain, a lot of wind, a lot of hail, something, definitely to watch for. And notice the NAM 3 km come Saturday night shows a pretty nasty cluster, several clusters of storms developing along the cold front of the system, and that's definitely something that we'll have to also be watched for. So that's basically all I have for today's video. I just wanted to go over the storm and its threats, and of course just keep an eye on the sky, because the National Weather Service gives out a threat, right? You could see some storms, you could see some rain, so you do know that, right? You live in Minneapolis, for example. Today there's a slight chance. I personally think that there might be a bit higher than just a slight chance, but because of the fact that these storms, like most models that we looked at here showed these storms developing. You can see right there into tonight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and potentially hitting the Twin Cities. But actually, if I look at this most recent model, you can see that this one really isn't favoring the Twin Cities with that cluster. It doesn't really think it'll develop one. Even just a few hours ago, the one we were looking at earlier, you could see showed some storms getting pretty close there. And again, they could still develop and form and bring some rain. I remember that one supercell that we had here across our area, hours before it, the National Weather Service was just like, if it doesn't form, there will be nothing, but if it does, there will be bad, it will be a big one. And it did end up forming, so that's just something that goes to show you how random things can be, and how hard it is to predict. So you just gotta use a little bit of your own, intuition, and I guess keep your eyes. If you see a cloud coming, right, it's probably a good sign that there's a storm nearby, and you should take a peep at the radar or just read what the National Weather Service has to say. You can see Iowa 40% chance today. You might get hit by one. It might clobber you. You might get missed, and you might think that was a hoax. But yeah, notice that tomorrow night definitely is a bigger threat for a city like Iowa, and then for a city like Chicago. It's probably more of Saturday, not really Friday. I think that cold front of that system will be more of a greater chance, and you can see that's what the National Weather Service thinks as well. Cities like, well, let's take a look at the Twin Cities, because I showed you today they have a slight chance, but really tomorrow night and into Saturday there's a pretty good chance of storms, and even in the second half of tomorrow. And of course the West with your monsoons, just be aware. Don't stay away from the slot canyons or areas like that, because it could be raining far away, but you could just hear or see thundering downpours, or thundering, I guess, the water pouring down it, as that's the kind of a flash floods work in the West. You see rain high above somewhere in upper elevation pouring down, you might think you're good, but then it just comes sweeping around and could easily knock you off your feet and whatnot. There's plenty of videos on YouTube that show that phenomenon. It's pretty cool to look at from a video, but it's definitely dangerous. So that is basically it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.